I am with Heidi Caudill, and we are going to talk about eating disorders today. And before we get started, there was some leaked Facebook papers. In these papers, they said that 1 in 3 teen girls' body image was worse since using Instagram. Like, that's actually a known fact to the social media platforms. And there's still, what's shocking to me is that the amount of filters and the amount of things that can perfect people in an image. That's exactly what it is. It's an image. It's not reality. And they know this, and they're still allowing it. And then 32% of teen girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. And the last thing I wanted to cite was there is a family, and they're citing in the lawsuit, they're citing these leaked Facebook papers. The family is suing Meta, Facebook, for the daughter's eating disorder. There's a problem. And so we're going to kind of get into your story because this is something you've dealt with. So kind of tell me about that.
Mine was definitely not something that maybe developed later on. I mean, as I go, I'll say how it did develop. Mm-hmm. But I remember having like really bad thoughts about my body and like unrealistic view all the way back to when I was, younger than my kids are now, 6 or 7 years old. I can remember like in PE class, this is probably my like furthest back memory, but I think I was 7, and I can remember running in PE, and I hated PE. I would get so nervous in there, and we would do relays, and everyone's watching you, and I would be so self-conscious already just because I was like, I didn't like to run, and I didn't, I wasn't the fastest. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling my cheeks jiggle, and like most kids are, should not even be thinking about that. And I remember my cheeks jiggling, and in my head, I was like, everyone's staring at me. They probably think I'm fat because like my cheeks are jiggling. So that meant I was fat somehow. And it's so sad. Like, it's so sad to know that now. And, my mom didn't know that I thought that. I didn't tell anybody, but it was in my head. And then kind of as I got a little older, maybe even just the next year, like 3rd grade, my mom has reminded me that I would like refuse to eat sometimes. And it wasn't just a kid, like, I don't want to eat my vegetables. It was like, I don't want to eat because I'll get fat.
Wow. And your mom didn't know that you were struggling. Like because you know how sometimes this can develop from parents saying things. So that wasn't the case though. Like your mom didn't even like totally unaware.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like, and maybe, I don't know how, maybe it's, I don't want to say normalized, but it is definitely like more talked about now. So maybe it was also just something that she didn't even realize, was a thing. I don't know, but
right.
Yeah, but so she kind of reminded me of that story and was like, I had to threaten you. I told you, if you don't eat, you're going to have to go to the hospital and they're going to poke you with needles, and you didn't like that. So then you would eat. So it was kind of her, mom way of like threatening you to keep going, I guess. But again, I don't know, like, if she realized like how serious it was or whatever. And then I remember middle school age, maybe like sixth grade. I was like 11 at that point, 11 or 12. And I can remember wearing a coat all day. And wow. It sounds so weird because it's like, okay, you start your day with a coat. Maybe it's chilly in school. But I remember like midway through the day getting hot. And at that point, that had become my security for the day. And I felt like if I stopped, like I would feel fat or something. And again, it's so like sad and messed up. That is obviously not normal or rational, but it was just so much insecurity in what I looked like and how I felt about myself, and constantly like, sucking in my stomach or crossing my arms, which I work on that. I still do that a lot. And even though there was no stomach there, it doesn't even matter. It was like that I worried so much about that.
Do you ever look back at pictures and say, wow, I was really beautiful?
Yeah.
Why did I not see that? Do you ever do that?
Yes, I have done that a lot in the past. And I can remember comparing myself to a lot of my friends, or thinking that they, like, you know, like I thought like they had more muscle definition or they were thinner or whatever. And I can look back and I'm like, I look just like them. But in my head, you know, you just see yourself however you think of yourself in the mirror.
Right. So you were actually depriving your body of actual food in high school.
Senior year, I was dating a guy, and it's like none of this is his fault. This is just kind of when it like all became like real about like the problem that I'm having, right? And somehow mentally I was like, I need to lose weight and I need to get thinner and he'll notice me or whatever, you know? And so it was kind of a gradual thing. And my parents were both working and really busy, and we packed our own lunches and stuff. So I kind of just gradually stopped packing so much food. And I started eating like saltines and like this teeny little spread of peanut butter and an apple. That's all I would pack, and then water. And I can remember like starving all day. I can remember like watching the clock. My last class was a computer class before lunch, and my stomach was like eating itself. And so you'd think like a normal body would be like, okay, I need to go eat. But then as soon as I would take a nibble, I would start feeling this like shame and guilt. Like, oh no, this is going to make me fat. I can't eat. I mean, I would just milk the clock with those 4 little crackers, you know, like,
wow.
And I just remember being so focused on making that last the whole lunch and like trying to not finish it so so the bell would ring and I could like throw the rest away. And
wow.
it's so sad, but like I don't have memory of like what my friends talked about at the table, you know, or anything like that. And I don't know if they noticed. There was never really a conversation about it like among them. And
because you were so focused on that, like that's your memories, right?
A lot of that year, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I was in all-state choir, and I remember we had to go away for like 4 days or however long over the weekend and practice and perform, and like all these people came together to be in this choir. And I remember like just barely eating anything and kind of the same thing, but like you said, all my memories were over like kind of like stretching food and surviving past it, you know. And I have like a few memories, but it was so consumed with that and like consumed with the calories and stuff like that.
And then how was your health because of that? I mean, there was no nutrition. So like, I mean, I know some people like their hair starts falling out, or, I mean, what was your health like?
Well, that first month that I even started doing this, I dropped 30 pounds.
Wow.
And I kept wearing the same clothes. So it wasn't super obvious, you know, just everything was baggy. But eventually my fingers and my toes would be numb and white most of the day. And I'm like, oh, it's
from the lack of nutrition.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it at the time. So like these things started happening, and I was getting really constipated, and my periods were stopped and messing up, and my hormones were crazy. Like I was super snippy and grumpy, and I was always Happy Heidi is what everyone called me. So yeah. I was like the bubbly one. And when I was like snipping at everybody, so my mom started noticing, and then they noticed, you know, I think it all kind of like, oh, why she lost a whole bunch of weight, like what's going on? Right. Like I said, they were so busy in the season of life, like it was harder for them to pay attention. And of course I would like eat dinner so that no one knew that. But they eventually took me to a doctor, and they thought I had like a brain tumor or something really wrong with my thyroid. And they ran like tons of tests.
Did they run tons of tests because you didn't tell them what the real reason was?
Right.
Like you knew, and then they were like, well,
it's like, I knew, but I didn't know. And I don't know how to explain that. If anyone's ever been in that place, I think they would be able to understand that. But like, it's like you realize you're conscious that you're doing it, but you also have kind of tricked yourself into believing that it's okay and you're safe. And I was like, well, maybe I'm constipated because I lived on like peanut butter. Yeah. I swear that peanut butter saved my life though.
Right.
Peanut butter, or like I worked at Dairy Queen. And even though that's so twisted because it's like tons of sugar and calories, I would like binge and eat a Dairy Queen at night because I was so hungry, you know?
So when you starve yourself, when you don't eat, you do binge. And so that's kind of, if you have somebody in your house who is losing, there's like, you're listening to Heidi and there's some of these signs, like they're losing weight majorly and then binge eating, I would say there's some sort of connection to have a conversation with your child, because, and then the binge eating, it actually kind of has the opposite effect, because then you're bloated and right.
Yeah.
It has the opposite. I mean, it does exactly what you're not doing
Right.
or not wanting to happen. And so really it's just better to eat throughout the day and not starve yourself.
No, it's exactly right. They basically were like thankfully figured it out, and she started finally asking me when they narrowed everything else out. They were like, "What are you eating? How much water are you drinking?" And I was drinking tons of water, like that I didn't need, and just all of these things. So they figured it out, and I don't really remember. I feel like my mom tried to set up a meeting with a nutritionist or something, but I remember going to her maybe once or twice, and I just thought it was all bogus, and like, you're a teenager and you don't want your mom to like mess up your life and stuff.
Yeah.
But I am so thankful that she did, and she started. So I think probably the nutritionist had me start writing down every single thing I ate. But for me, it kind of helped, but it kind of backfired.
It made you very aware of calories.
Yeah. I became so obsessed with counting calories. So at this point, like I've graduated, I gained back, 5 or 10 pounds. So it was like kind of healthier. And then it entered, like I was going to college. And so at this point, my mom, I think, was panicking because she couldn't monitor me as much, and I was going to eat at the dorm. And guys, I had calories memorized, like it all up really quick and know, okay, that's going to be 400 calories for the meal or whatever.
Yeah.
I know it was meant to be good, but that became another kind of illness in my head. And it was all just this mindset. And so I still wasn't eating enough. Like I was eating more maybe, but not enough. This like active busy girl, and yeah, super obsessed with calories at that point.
So you said in third grade, it was just a normal thing for you to think about this stuff. But can you think of a time that was like the catalyst for catapulting you into this?
I don't know that there was. Like my sister-in-law struggled with this kind of same things. And she is a lot more of a researcher. So I'm not a researcher. I'm all about like, this is what I did and this is what works. But I remember one time we had a conversation and she was saying, like your brain might actually be wired differently to be like having these thoughts.
Third grade for you was a time when there was zero social media, and like me and you, same age, it was dial-up internet. It really was just either magazines. And so for you to be so young and thinking that is a very interesting kind of parallel.
It went from like the starving to like trying, but still having that negative mindset. And then, in those college years, I then met my now husband, and bless his heart, like he did help me quite a bit, but it still was my mindset. And it didn't matter what he said. It didn't matter how many times he told me I was perfect, I was beautiful, I was thin, I was whatever. I didn't believe it. And like I had this little apartment, and there were times like he would come over and I would be in my closet crying and just like bawling my eyes out that why can't I get past this? Like, why can't I feel normal? I always wrote in a prayer journal, and you could flip back through so many of those. Like, I just want to eat and be free and normal and be like everybody else. And why do I, maybe at this point I might have like eaten the French fries or eaten the burger. There was still the guilt after, or there was still like, oh crap, that was 1,000 calories, so I have to starve later or make up for it in some other way.
And you didn't want to be like this.
No.
Which I think it's very interesting, especially for people who are learning about this for a loved one, or just about, it's what got you to the point where this cycle broke.
I mean, I became a mama. And I feel like a lot of moms, you have, especially that first baby, and your outlook on everything changes, and you're just like, I want so much better for her. And I had this little girl, and, at this point, like, well, all through, I feel like I had a pretty healthy pregnancy, and I was taking care of that baby. So I could eat, I could do it for her, but maybe not for myself. And after that pregnancy, I honestly was like, I felt a lot better. But, then you're like trying to get the weight off and whatever, and that guilt kind of creeped back in.
Was your pregnancy the first time that you've ever ate healthy?
We followed the paleo plan for my husband and I before that for a long time. And so it was kind of the same thing of like, I was definitely fueling better and getting more nutrients and all of that. And paleo, this isn't against paleo. Paleo is great, but it is like no grains, no bread, you know, any of that, and like no sugar and stuff. So it is healthy for you. But for me, it was still a sense of restriction.
Sure.
Because I was like, if I deviated from that, it was that guilt all over again. I just remember like being terrified. I mean, terrified that especially my daughter, like, because before I even had my son, that she was going to end up like me and have this, you know, these feelings and this like relationship with food. And I had many conversations with my husband about it. I'm actually choking up on tears. I haven't thought about that for so long, but I did not want her to go through that. I wanted to be the one that knew how to like walk out of that and help her walk through it, you know?
Yes.
And so it was really in one of those moments where I was just like, I have to change this. I'm so sorry that I'm getting choked up.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. No worries.
But, you know, there were so many times of me like just hating what I saw in the mirror and, you know, walking past and having all these awful negative thoughts about myself. And with my son, I kind of went the opposite direction of like stress eating and, you know, going through that, like he was a tough little baby.
Yeah.
And so in the moments, it almost went the opposite way. So I can relate to both sides of the spectrum because I know eating disorder can be all over the place. It's just not a healthy relationship with food.
I have a little girl too, and she's 9. A lot of conversations are always geared with the mindset of, I want you to be empowered by who she is, not what she looks like. Eating healthier and better, that's a very good choice. Let's make sure we're doing it for the right reason.
My daughter, at least right now, has no problems.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like she totally owns who she is.
Yeah.
I mean, even when she was really young, just like checking herself out in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I felt myself almost like getting ready to be like, don't be so vain, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, why? Like we should all be checking ourselves out in the mirror and just feeling so good. She just like loves who she is. So
I love that. I love that she loves what she sees. That's so powerful. So, okay, what was your turning point? And because you got into Beachbody, and that was kind of a really big turning point for you.
My husband and I like joined, my friend was a coach and was sharing all of the time about mostly the workouts and everything. And we were pretty avid, like working out already, but just running out of time to drive to the gym and the money and all of that. So we joined her, and what you got was like everything, like stuff for nutrition, your workouts, this superfood shake, everything. And when we first got, so at the time they had this one nutrition program called Portion Fix, and it's all these little containers, and essentially it's a balanced macro plan. But you don't have to count the macros, you just figure out your calorie bracket and whatever. But just having that word calorie bracket was like freaking me out. Oh no.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to see like how many calories I'm eating, you know? And I felt like at that point, you know, like the mindset was still off and on a struggle, but I was working on it. And I told my friend, I was like, I'll do the workouts, but I'm really scared to do the nutrition because I will get obsessed with it just like I did. And we're eating healthy because we're eating paleo. So I don't need to know how to do that. But I don't even know. I honestly don't really know what made me try it, or maybe just that I had been praying so long and so hard just to change, you know, and to figure out how to help this. But whatever it was, I did do the plan. And it just started really, well, first of all, it was feeding me better than I was eating before. It helps me eat more actually than I'm used to eating. And in the beginning, I'll be honest, I skipped the yellows, which are carbs. And she went live in our little group one day, and she said something, I don't remember the whole video, but she was like, and maybe your results aren't coming because you're skipping your yellows. You need your
Oh,
you need your carbs, they're your energy. And and it's not like we're filling it up with cake.
yeah.
It's like healthy
Right.
sweet potatoes or brown rice. It's healthy stuff, and it's not a
Yeah.
ton anyway. But
Yeah.
I remember that stood out to me because at that point I was now on this new mission of like getting healthier and getting stronger and like feeling good, and I did want those results, but I was trying to do it in this healthier way. So I was like, I guess I should trust her. And I started eating the yellows.
Yeah.
And guess what? Like I felt so much better. And so the whole process of following this though, it really did like start to change my mindset around food and like actually caring about nutrition, because I told you before, like I was starving, but then I would just like go eat a whole bunch of ice cream and peanut butter or something.
Right.
And so, and the other part of this system was about eating smaller amounts, like 2 or 3 of the containers or however you pair it.
So you've learned
Okay.
you've learned about food through this program,
Right.
that everything you thought about food your entire life, everything that you thought, the carbs and stuff, thinking those were, oh my gosh, like get the carbs away from me. I can't touch those. You've learned that you're actually supposed to, in order to be healthy and be in a state that you are comfortable with, you need those things.
Right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's like ironic. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can go to the bathroom better and we have more energy and we're sleeping better.
Yeah.
And I saw like I wasn't, I was like I said, I have more energy for longer to last longer in the day. I wasn't snipping at the kids. Like I felt happy. I felt good and I was fueled. Like, I was satisfied and filled up. And so it was really cool. And so of course, then I became like a strong believer in it.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, it would teach me, to eat like smaller amounts, like every 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that also really like, it was like a more stable blood sugar.
Yeah. So
that constant energy. And that, like you were saying earlier about the binging, like, first of all, I didn't need to do that because I was just filled up all day and I just felt good and satisfied all day.
Yeah. And so we're now at a place where you have proper nutrition. You enjoy eating the food to get the proper nutrition. Where have you gotten? Have you gotten to a place where if your arms jiggle or your face jiggle, you love yourself? Or like, what is that like?
During this time, I feel like so much changed and like the trainers too were just pouring into you, like just kind of like preaching to you and just getting all this self-love and stuff. And I also started really diving into like personal growth and reading personal development and listening to like Girl Wash Your Face was like one of my first books. And so the more of that like positive that I was putting in about health, like now my focus, like I said before, was just this health. The more that positive was starting to come out and like what I was thinking about, and my body hadn't even changed yet. It was still, and it wasn't like I was super unhealthy or anything, but you're trying to lose that 5 or 10 pounds from your babies and whatever. None of that had even changed yet. But yeah, the mindset shift was so amazing and just feeling so confident and like so much less insecure. Like I felt like when I would go, see friends, or I remember around that time I went to a friend's wedding and I just felt like so good in my dress.
And you hadn't even reached your goal weight yet. And you loved it, which is such a complete 180 from where you came from. And that is so awesome. That's where I went. That's what we want all these girls to listen to this and know that they can not be at their goal weight yet. They don't even have to have a goal weight and be beautiful and get to the place of knowing they're beautiful. And that's so awesome. Say a thought was to come today. What would you do?
I do still get them. And I like to be honest about like we're talking about social media and stuff. I try to be real and share that maybe not all the time, but when those things come up, because it doesn't matter if you're 300 pounds or if you have a 6-pack, like if your mindset's not right, you will not feel good and you will not be happy.
So true.
And so, I do have those thoughts come back sometimes, and a lot lately, I feel like, and sometimes I think it's like, cause like this was coming up or something. Um, but like I was talking to my husband about it, because there are moments where I'm like, why? Like, why does this still have to be in my head? Like, I know it's not true now, and I'm not going to listen to it, and I'm not going to act on it and go starve myself. But why does it keep coming? And so he is now a sober an alcoholic. And he's like, it's the same, in his mind, like it's the same thing. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go drink and go act on those feelings, or like, leaning on that for my emotions, whatever. But how to stay in control of it and to get past it. And it's a choice that we make. And so, so what I do is first of all, like, I've learned those like positive things to tell yourself, like, it is not true. It is a lie, Heidi. You're beautiful, and maybe you just like don't need to stare extra long in the mirror that day.
Don't go on social media that day. Like, that's one for me.
Right.
Yeah.
There are definitely days like that. I just don't allow, if there is a certain person, there are certain people that I know I'll compare myself to, just don't go watch their stories. You don't put that in your head. But so much of it is that willingness to keep fighting. And, like, especially on those days, like, where, like, I still follow this nutrition plan. And sometimes I get frustrated that I feel like I have to follow it. Like, sometimes I'm like, I just can't eat without it, because then I'll like not eat enough or whatever. But also it's like, why does that matter? It's still helping me. It's been almost 5 years now.
It's a plan to keep you on track to be the best for yourself and your family.
Yeah. So on those days, like, and we've got we can track it in our app and everything. And I lean into that like super hard, and I don't want to go eat the food, but I know that I need to eat the food, and it's just so crazy. But
I want to thank you for, coming on and sharing your story and empowering people who are struggling with this. And if there is somebody, if you could say one thing to a parent who's trying to help their child through eating disorders, and one thing to somebody who is struggling with eating disorders, what is one thing you would say to both of those?
You aren't going to understand what they're going through, and they're not like necessarily trying to do it for attention. I'm sure that was a thought. Try to either understand or just listen, or be there, support them.
The most common thing I've heard is listen. Just listen. And then what would you say to somebody who is going through it?
It is possible to be free and to get better. Man, I'm choking up again, but
yeah, it's okay.
I did not ever think that I would be in this place. And when now I'm so excited that I get to share that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I hope that someone, just one person even, can hear this and know that it's possible. But you have to be willing. And like, I put in so much work. It was years of that. I remember posting about it even a few years ago. And it was like, at that point I was saying like 11 years I've been dealing with this. That's a long time. And like, every day is not going to be easy or perfect. And it still might not be, however many years it's been now. But be willing to just one foot in front of the other, take that one step at a time. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be work, but it's such good work, and it's so worth it when you get to the other side of that.
Everything about you is a genuine. You can tell that you've been freed from it. And I just think that's so awesome. And you can actually follow Heidi on Instagram. It's HeidiCaudill. And you can follow her journey. She posts about it quite a bit. If you want somebody to connect with, or super, super sweet person, and you can just follow her journey a little more on there. So anyway, thank you so much, Heidi. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being vulnerable in order to help others get to a place of healing and starting their journey. And I look forward to following you and talking to you some more in the future.
Thank you.